Today we're exploring concept number 5, which is how do we create and solve equations if we're given a table or a graph. So we're going to begin this concept by talking about the standard way to write an equation. We use the form y equals mx plus b, and in this form the m is what we call slope, the b is what we call the y-intercept. So we're going to define these, but the slope is that rate of change, what's happening in my scenario each and every time. The y-intercept is going to be the starting point, or where does it cross the y-axis. So if we go to the next slide here, we have the definition of slope. Slope equals the change in y over the change in x. Now, these little triangles here just mean the word change. So this is a shorthanded way to write this same thing here. So slope is the change in y over the change in x. And the y-intercept is where our line crosses the y-axis. Another way to say that, it is called a starting point. So if you're dealing with time, where would you be at the very beginning? So now that we know the standard form of an equation, y equals mx plus b, and we know that m stands for the slope, which is the change in y over the change in x, and b being the y-intercept, or the starting point, we can dive into how do we take a table and write the equation on the line. So here's our first example. We have a swim training scenario where it gives us our weeks in the top of the table and our laps per day. So on week 1 we swim 4 laps per day. Week 2 we swim 8 laps per day. 3 we swim 12 laps per day. 4 we swim 16. When we're given a table, the first thing we want to do is find the pattern that's happening in each row. So we want to look from here to here to here, and we want to decide, how do I go from 1 to 2? How do I go from 2 to 3, 3 to 4? Well, I do that by adding 1. So this pattern is to add 1. Then we're going to look down here in this row in our laps per day, and we're going to decide what is the pattern happening there. Each time from 4 to 8, 8 to 12, 12 to 16, I would add 4. That change in that variable is to add 4. Now, this guy, my weeks, if I thought about how I was going to graph that, he would be on the x-axis, which would make him my independent variable, which means that he is going to be my x values, and then my laps per day would be my y's. So when I go to find my slope, it's going to be laps per day over the weeks. So it's going to be my 4, my pattern of adding 4 each time, over my pattern of adding 1. So I start by finding the pattern within my table, and that gives me my slope. Once I have the slope, I need to find the y-intercept. Now remember, the y-intercept was that starting point. If I'm at week 0, how many laps am I swimming each day? Well, if I haven't started, then I haven't swam any, so my y-intercept would be 0. Because I'm at week 0, haven't swam any laps per day. So once I've got that, I'm ready to write my equation. Remember, it goes in y equals mx plus b. I'm going to take and I'm going to put this 4 over 1 in for m and my 0 in for x. I'm just going to evaluate and substitute those values in. So it's going to read y equals 4 over 1 x plus 0. Now this plus 0 right here, we don't have to write. So another way to do that is to write just y equals 4 over 1x. So either way would be correct. This way is more efficient. So that's how I take a table and I write an equation. Now let's talk about if I'm given a graph instead of a table. The first thing I start by doing is finding 2 nice points on my line. Now when I find 2 nice points, I'm asking to find points where it nicely hits the grid back behind. I don't want a point like this where it hits halfway between. I want to use a nice one. So I'm going to use the points 85, that's this guy right here, and I'm going to use 160, 10. Now, it doesn't matter which 2 points you use, as long as they're nice, you will get the same answer. Once I have found my 2 nice points, I'm going to find my change in my y values. So that's from this distance here. I go from a distance of 5 to a distance of 10. That is a y value change of 5. So my y value change, or the change in my y, is 5. If I want to find the x value, that's this blue line, and it goes from 80 to 160. So my x value change is equal to 80. Once I have that, I can write the slope of my equation. Remember, it's going to be the y's over the x's. Now, to keep myself straight, I always find the y change first to remind myself that that goes on top. So I'm going to do 5 over 80. Now that simplifies into 1/16. Then I need to find my y-intercept. Remember, your y-intercept is, where does that cross the y-axis? Well, it crosses the y-axis right here, or my starting point, and the y value there is 0. So my y-intercept is 0. Once I have those 2 pieces, my equation would read y equals 1/16 x plus 0. Or I could write y equals just 1/16 x, and I could be done. So if I want to find the equation of a line given a graph, I need to find 2 nice points, calculate my change in y, calculate my change in x, write it as a fraction, find the y-intercept, and plug it in. Now it is your problems in your practice problems. So here's the first problem. You have this table with number of stars and number of points. Pause the video now and write the equation of the line. If you got y equals 7x, or y equals 7x plus 0, you may go on to the next problem. If not, press this button to find out how to do this. So if I want to solve this, I'm going to find the patterns within the tables. So from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5 is to add 1, add 1, add 1. So my x change is to add 1. My y change on the bottom of the table, to go from 14 to 21, I add 7 each time. So my y change is to add 7. So my slope is going to be 7 over 1. My y-intercept is that starting value. So when I have 0 stars, how many points would I have? Well, if I have 0 stars, I don't have any points. That would be 0. Then I'm going to substitute into the equation y equals mx plus b. I'm going to put 7 over 1 in for m and 0 into b. So it reads y equals 7 over 1x plus 0, or y equals 7 over 1x. Now it's your turn to try. Give you a graph, can you write the equation of the line? Pause the video now and write the equation of this graph. If you got y equals 200 over 3x plus 0, or y equals 200 over 3x, you're ready to go on to the practice quiz. If not, press now and watch how to do this problem. I'm going to find 2 nice points. So here is the first point I'm going to do. I'm just going to use 0, 0 since it goes through there. It's always nice and easy. And remember, I want to find where it hits the grid nicely. My next point would be up here at 6, 400. Now, they skipped some lines here on the side, so I always go in and I fill in those values. So if they skip a line, then go 400, that means this first line is 200, then 600, then 1,000, and we get the pattern. So I'm first going to find the change in y. So what is the change in y? Well, that goes from 0 to 400. So my change in y is 400. Then I need to find the change in x. Well, it goes from 0 to 6. So my change in x is equal to 6. Remember, these two values, the change in y and the change in the x, give me my slope. So now my slope is equal to 400 over 6. Now that simplifies. I can divide 406 both by 2, and that gets me 200 over 3. Now nothing goes in 203, so I'm just going to leave it as 203. Or you could have done 3 goes into 200. 3 goes into 200, 66 and 2/3 times. So if you wanted to make that a mixed number or a decimal of 66.6 repeating, you could do that. My y-intercept, again, y-intercept is where does this cross the y-axis? Where does my line cross the y-axis? Well, it crosses the y-axis right here at the origin, or 0, 0. So my y-intercept is 0. Once I have that, I can write the equation of the line. Y equals 200 over 3x plus 0. Remember now, instead of 200 over 3, you could also have 66 and 2/3, or you could have 66.6 repeating. So these two values over here could be substituted here. I don't have to write the 0 if I don't want to, so I could write y equals 200 over 3x, and I have written the equation of the line.